Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Ajoe21love, back again for Sports OV Topics, episode 92. It's a good one, sore, as we gear towards the NFL draft, which is at the end of next month. Next week, I will have my first mock draft for this season's draft, which is at the end of next month. But for today, got a bunch of stuff to go over today, including Deshaun Watson, Matt Ryan, Davante Adams, the Raiders, etc. It's gonna be quite filled podcast today, but thank you for joining me. If you're new to the podcast and if you want to see more videos, click that subscribe in the corner. Find more videos on the homepage, all sports overview topics. But you can find those. But thank you all. Let's begin. So, starting off. So, as it has been a crazy NFL offseason thus far, with the whole shenanigans starting with Russell Wilson being traded, Aaron Rodgers staying in Green Bay, Tom Brady coming out of retirement, etc. It's been a wild off season thus far, and it only gets even wackier. Deshaun Watson, who last week was filed that he will not, or was determined rather, that he will not face any criminal charges for the allegations that he endured starting last year when it was time for him announcing a trade request to get out of Houston with the Texans, but the allegations came forth and he stayed with the Texans this past season. He did not play, but he was still on the roster. Now, after last week, when it was announced that he was not going to face any criminal charges for the allegations last year, that it was only a matter of time till him, the caliber player he is, the caliber quarterback he is, would be traded. And there are rumblings about a number of different teams needing quarterback. There was, Washington before they got Wentz. The Colts, although it seemed unlikely that the Texans were going to trade in the division. The Falcons, Saints were in the mix. Panthers, of course, they were in the mix last year. But when in the offseason before the allegations occurred. But in the end, it's the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns have traded for Deshaun Watson, including multiple first-round picks, a third and a fifth. But huge dramatics. Now, for both sides. So the Browns, you know, last season, and me included, the expectations were high. Expectations were high for Cleveland and the Browns this past season to with that roster to go forth and be not only a playoff team again, but perhaps to win the division and go this far. Pretty much, Cincinnati did what many people thought Cleveland might do. So this past season, going to the Super Bowl with Joe Burrow, and that was not the case. The Browns didn't even make the playoffs. They were 8-9, were okay, but had a bunch of close games throughout the year. With the Vikings, with the Steelers twice, with the Packers on Christmas, etc. A bunch of close games down the stretch. And unfortunately, it was only 8 wins for Cleveland, which started at 3-1. Started 3-1, but went 5-7, or 5-8 rather, down the stretch. Now, Baker, he injured his shoulder, his non-throwing shoulder, yes, but his shoulder nonetheless in week 2 versus Texans, and did have some solid performances, most notably, which is one of the games of the year versus the Chargers, that game. But nonetheless, he didn't look right. He didn't look all the way 100%, even though he showed spurts of how he was in 2020. Now, he's fighting for a second deal, and now he has 1 year left on his rookie contract, but nonetheless, the Browns trade for Deshaun Watson and Deshaun Watson is, yes, an upgrade over Baker Mayfield. I think we can agree. They originally tried to do their due diligence on Deshaun Watson when it was noticed that he wouldn't face criminal charges, but then it was leaked, and Baker Mayfield did not take too kindly to it and requested a trade. And so then the Browns were then told that they were out of the running for Deshaun Watson. Then it appeared that it was down to the Saints and the Falcons. But then Deshaun Watson reconceived and probably saw the offer because he had no trade clause. So he probably saw an offer he didn't really like. Although the Saints, very good team in their own right, but probably didn't give a good enough offer that Deshaun wanted. So instead, they gave Deshaun Watson a small extension, I believe a year to his already big deal, adding another year and sending a boatload of picks to Houston, which good for them. A rebuilding team has enough capital to work forward to in the future. But, you know, the Browns, I feel bad for Baker. I feel bad because, I mean, look, in 2019, when Fred Kitchens was made the head coach, the expectations after getting Odell, they were a bit sky high by in 2019. And I picture them to be better, not quite a juggernaut, but quite better, perhaps a 9-10 win team, and they went 6-10. Then, after failing that year against Stefanski, they went 11-5 and had a joyous season, beating the Steelers in the playoffs and coming close to being the Chiefs in the divisional round. And then obviously this year 8-9. But when you have a roster that is ready to win and it is all in, you gotta have the quarterback you feel in position. And Deshaun Watson should be that. And now, I do think Cleveland sort of messed this up for themselves. I'm sure they were content with letting Baker, coming off shoulder surgery, come back for another year and prove himself while trying to get a second deal. And the information came out, Baker was not happy, so they jumped to it and just went all in with the trade. So there's that. Now, it's a bit of a weird situation. Now, Cleveland, I'm sure people are skeptic about it, but Cleveland, when you look at the Browns, Saints, and the Falcons, are the better overall team of the three. Better, great O line. Yes, they let go of JC Treader, but they can still orchestrate another piece in that center. 1-2 punch at running back, Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb. They resigned Amari Cooper and Donovan Peoples-Jones. They got Schwartz. He's a speedster. Unfortunately, they lost Rashard Higgins to the Panthers, but there's that. They let go of Jarvis Landry. We'll see where that goes. But I mean, the offense pretty much settled. The defense has some studs. Myles Garrett. They traded for Chase Winovich. They have J.O.H. Owusu Koromoa, a stud of Notre Dame, going into his second season. Denzel Ward, hopefully he can be fully healthy this season. You know, Johnson, Dale Pitt, etc. But some studs across the board. Now, Saints have Kamara. They have Michael Thomas. Solid O-line. They have the better defense than Cleveland. I will give them that. But across the board, Cleveland is a better team, better up, and Atlanta is pretty much in a rebuild. Pretty much in a rebuild. And I'm sure Deshaun Watson would have probably been a domino effect of stars who are free agents to come to Atlanta, but it's probably better for the future of them that they didn't send a boatload of picks to Houston like Cleveland did. And also for Houston, again, I mentioned they're a rebuilding team. You know, they don't have much stars on the team. Now, Davis Mills, Lovie Smith has endorsed Davis Mills as quarterback. Nick Caserio, good GM. You know, you're hopeful that they can bring in some difference makers because they have some nice pieces. You know, they got Burkhead, Woodhead, or no, Woodhead, Amendola, former Patriots, just, you know, they don't have a lot to work with for that team, but hopefully, Brandon Cooks, hopefully with the draft capital, they can use some of these picks to get some building blocks for the future. Going back to Atlanta, because speaking of a rebuilding team, the Atlanta Falcons, they traded Matty Ice, their franchise quarterback. Matt Ryan has been traded to Indianapolis, the Colts, for a third round pick. Now, the Colts, we knew after moving off Carson Wentz, that they were in the quarterback market, and it felt like, because Atlanta has been in a bit of rebuild the last couple of seasons, and Matt Ryan, at the end of his career, probably wants to play for a contender, so he was a bit of an under the radar look for the quarterback market, and oh boy, the Colts struck the deal as Matty Ice goes to Indy. I mean, great for Indy because Matt Ryan, has shown that he can still sling it. He's shown that now he's probably not as lights out as he was a number of years ago in that MVP season, but he's still good and he can still sling it. And behind that old line, which, besides losing Mark Lewinsky to the Giants, is still very much intact. Quentin Nelson, Ryan Kelly, Brandon Smith. That line is going to protect him. Now, do think they still need to get a another wide receiver or a tight end. I mean, with trading for Matt Ryan and Julio Jones is a free agent, so I mean, there is the possibility that they bring him in to play with the quarterback who's been throwing to him for a decade. So there's that. We'll see. But good for the Colts. We know they're a contending team, and they still need work on the offense, I think. People want to condemn Wentz for that team not going as far as he thought, but you look at now with Jack Doyle retiring, they still have work to do at the receiver position. Michael Pittman had 1,000-yard season, but need a bit of help in that department. As for the Falcons, they picked up Marcus Mariota today for a short-term deal. And I mean, as I mentioned, they're a rebuilding team. So I mean, a third round pick, you kind of hoping they maybe get a second, maybe something more for him, but nonetheless a third. You know, they're another team that doesn't have a lot of stars on that team. I mean, they lost Russell Gage to the Bucks. Calvin Ridley, who's left the team suspended for next season. They do have Kyle Pitts, but they don't have a lot on that team, which is kind of sad when you think of the Falcons. Then, oh boy, Vegas. The Las Vegas Raiders, I must mention, because besides this Deshaun Watson trade, the other huge trade that was made the other day was Davante Adams traded from the Packers, who the past 2 seasons has come on strong with 2 1,000-yard seasons, 2 straight, but now is traded to the Raiders and given a big extension, 5 years, 141.26 million. Is now the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. He reunites with his former college quarterback, Derek Carr, and after that big deal by Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay to stay, they lose pretty much their best weapon on offense. Now, we kind of had a feeling Davante was disgruntled last season with some of the stuff he said or some stuff that was rumored. But, I mean, with this whole being the last dance with Aaron Rodgers, Davante Adams, but ultimately they came up short in being one and done in the playoffs against the 49ers. And a icy, snowy Lambeau. So now Aaron Rodgers gets his huge extension to say Davante Adams leaves. Now, Aaron Rodgers is one of the best quarterbacks we've ever seen. We've seen him with a pretty much a different field of receivers and a team always different times around. You know, we saw for a number of years he had Greg James, Donald Driver, Jordan Nelson, Randall Cobb. Now, Cobb is still there, but he's not who he was a former years ago, but don't have a lot to work with now. I don't expect. Now, they picked up Amari Rodgers, who I like, in the draft last year, and from Clemson. So he may take a step forward, although he had a couple drops this last season. There are a good string amount of wide receivers in the draft, and getting 2 first-round picks, I expect them to use at least one of them on one of the fellow premier wide receivers, whether it's Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Treylor Burks, Tyron Johnson, Baylor, etc. Excuse me, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. As for the Raiders, if you're Derek Carr, you gotta be loving it right now because this is probably the best Raiders team we've seen in a long time. I mean, with the plethora now of talent they have in Vegas, Derek Carr, Josh Jacobs, Davante Adams, Hunter Renfro, Darren Waller, if he can stay healthy, Brian Edwards, see about him on the offense. The second year of that O-line, which I'm sure is just going to get better. Yeah, Max Crosby and Chandler Jones on defense. I mean, 2 bookend talents on defense. Just going to be alone. So it's going to be a fun year to look forward to for the Raiders. And I would not be shocked. I would not be shocked if we see the Raiders in 2023 host a playoff game and are in a championship game with that roster. I mean, yes, I'm wearing my black, but yes, I would not be surprised if we see silver and black play deep into January. So those are my thoughts on Raiders. Ay. Couple other notes. So Jameis Winston, he re-signed with the Saints. Now, it's kind of figure out because, with Deshaun Watson, with Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, kind of feeling, if you weren't going to get one of these top-end quarterbacks, then go back to Jameis for short-term deal, but they did re-sign him for a 2-year extension worth $28 million. $21 million of that is guaranteed, so only $7 million left on the contract. But great to see for Jameis. He wasn't doing great, but he was doing well. He was doing well, and for the time he was healthy last season, and they still finished a manageable 9-8 last season, and we're on the brink of the playoffs. But you know, Jameis, another year. Michael Thomas hopefully comes back. Alvin Kamara. That defense is so very much sound. So, you know, they can still make noise as far as New Orleans goes this coming season. But, yeah, I mean, so now that it seems, so the Colts have filled their QB void. The Falcons, it seems, have filled their void. Saints re-signed Jameis, so it's a bit ticky-tack now that Baker Mayfield, his possible destinations are up for grabs, it seems. I mean, the way it sounds, I mean, Seattle is probably a figure of destination I can see for him. I mean, if you're the Seahawks, now with trading Russell Wilson, you have the 9th pick in draft. And I don't think they're content with just Drew Lock, but I mean, it depends. With one of these rookies, Matt Corral, Kenny Pickett, Malik Willis, Desmond Ritter, Sam Howell, we'll see. But it's strange, a bit ticky-tacky now around Baker Mayfield and where his possible destination or his next destination is going to be. But we'll see. It's just crazy how the AFC now is going to be. I mean, just think about it. It's like, okay, you got the Bills who, were this close to making the AFC Championship game or hosting it. You got the Bills, the Pats, you got the Bengals, Joe Burrow, them replenishing that line. The Browns now with Deshaun Watson. The Ravens, I'm sure, gonna have something to say about it with Lamar Jackson. You have the Titans. I think many of us are expecting a rebound year for Trevor Lawrence after what happened in his rookie season. Jacksonville, you got the Chiefs, you got Russell Wilson, the Broncos, you got the Raiders, who I mentioned earlier, and the Chargers. I mean, it's going to be a wild AFC. It's going to be a wild race to see who goes to Arizona in 2023, but it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to watch the AFC. Now, I do want to mention that without the news that the AFC has been getting so far this offseason, I just want to clarify that the NFC, yes, it has not gotten much love really this offseason, but it still has some pretty good teams if you look at it. You know, Washington, I like with Carson Wentz. That team is a solid team. I expect them to be back. You got the Cowboys, who, while I'm not the biggest fan of Dak, are a pretty good roster. You got the Packers, obviously, with Aaron Rodgers. You know, the Vikings are a wild card, but yeah, the Bucks, Saints now, Jameis resigning, Cardinals. I mean, playing past the Kyler Murray thing, they're still gonna be a contender. We got the reigning Super Bowl champs, the Rams, who, although they trade Robert Woods to the Titans, they're gonna be still there. And the 49ers, boy, we still got some solid teams in the AFC. So just while the AFC is getting much love this offseason, don't forget kindly about the solid teams in the NFC. Just I know the glitz and glamour and the recency bias is a thing, but just don't forget. And the one last thing I mentioned just now, the Rams, they traded Robert Woods to the Titans. Now, I they signed Allen Robinson last week, who was with the Bears the last number of years. Now, if you're an OBJ fan, I think you gotta be optimistic for it because, Robert Woods, he's been a solid wide receiver for the last number of years, but only for a 6th-round pick. Now, he did sign a big extension uh, a couple years ago, and he'll bring that to the Titans, but, you know, Rams now, okay, you have Cooper Kupp, Allen Robinson, you know, OBJ, when he comes back, I imagine he'll sign a deal. Van Jefferson, his 3rd season. Um, Good stuff to look forward to with the Rams. As for Titans, good solid stuff there because, you know, they obviously traded for Julio last year, thinking it was a missing piece, and pairing him alongside with AJ Brown, who's great. One of the better one of the top wide receivers in football. And Julio missed a boatload of games last season. And when he was healthy, he did okay, but not what they expected. Now, he did have a pretty good game in the playoff game versus the Bengals, but of course they lost that. Nonetheless, I think it's good party work for both sides. solid wide receiver for Tennessee to pair with A.J. Brown. You know, when we know Derrick Henry is a beast. We know he's going to be back. And Ryan Tannehill, yes, he's not the glamorous quarterback people love, and people will continue to harp on for the way it happened against the Bengals. But nonetheless, they're going to be up there in contention for the AFC again this season. So it's going to be interesting. But nonetheless, that was all I had for the podcast today. Hope you guys enjoy it. I did as well. Click that like as well as the subscribe button down in the corner. Well, but thank you all. Be safe. As again, next week I'll have my first mock draft as we gear towards the 2022 NFL draft at the end of next month. So thank you all. Be safe. I'm Ajoe21love. Peace.